In August of 2013, Keller and Heckman launched a webinar, the OSHA 3030, to provide the OSHA 3030 community, friends and clients of Keller and Heckman, with updates on developmental issues in the field of occupational safety and health law in 30 minutes every 30 days. And we've been doing that program every 30 days for now 10 years. This is the August 2023 episode and the 10th anniversary episode of the OSHA 3030. We have a special guest today to celebrate the 10th anniversary episode with us. I'm Manesh Rath, and welcome to the OSHA 3030. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Manesh Rath. I'm a partner at the law firm Keller and Heckman here in Washington, D.C. And I'm an attorney who's been focused on the field of occupational safety and health law for the entirety of my about 28 years of practice, representing management side only. And I'm joined today by my good friend and colleague, Taylor Johnson. Taylor, welcome to the OSHA 3030.
Thanks for having me as always, Manesh.
Well, 10 years.
Long time.
And yet seems like such a short time, seems like just yesterday. But today we have a special episode. As I mentioned just a moment ago, we're joined by a special guest, Representative Kevin Kiley. Representative Kevin Kiley is a member of the United States House of Representatives. He's a congressman representing the 3rd District of California, a Republican and a freshman to Congress. And he is now the chair of the Workforce Protections Subcommittee.
That's right, Manesh. And Representative Kiley, he holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard and a master's in secondary education from Loyola Marymount. And he also graduated from Yale Law School.
You would think with such impressive credentials that the doors of lucrative private enterprises would be flung open, but Representative Kiley has dedicated his life to public service, first working as a prosecutor for the state of California, and then as a member of the General Assembly, the state General Assembly for the state of California.
That's right. And because of that work at the California State Assembly, he was named National Legislator of the Year by the Association of Independent Workers. And he's proudly now serves on the House Judiciary Committee, as well as 3 subcommittees, most notably the chair of the Subcommittee on Workforce Protections. And
it's that chairmanship of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee that is why we're here today. In between, I should add one more thing. In between earning his master's degree, which was in secondary education, and going on to law school, he had a career as a 10th grade English teacher at a public school in Los Angeles. So again, echoing this lifetime of public service, which is impressive. So now he's a freshman member of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing the 3rd District of California, and serving as chair of the Workforce Protections Subcommittee. This is an important committee for members of the OSHA 3030 community. Let's start by explaining how this fits in. The U.S. House of Representatives has many committees, and the House Committee on Education and Workforce is a very important committee that oversees issues involving education, job training. Retirement security is one of its portfolio issues, and amongst them is also workforce protections, which is served through its subcommittee, the Workforce Protections Subcommittee. Its current chair, as I said, is Representative Kevin Kiley, Republican from California's 3rd District. And the Workforce Protections Subcommittee has oversight over issues like, well, of course, most important to us today, workplace safety and health, but also wage hour law, workers' compensation, workplace-related immigration issues, and other issues related to equal employment opportunity and civil rights matters affecting the workplace or employment law. So, and a very important portfolio for the Workforce Protection Subcommittee. And so we're very grateful to have Chair and Representative Kevin Kiley. Representative Kiley, thank you very much for joining us on the OSHA 3030.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So, Representative Kiley, tell us, first, let's get one thing out of the way. How should we address you? Representative Kiley, Mr. Kiley?
Kevin's fine for for our purposes here.
Okay, thank you. So, Kevin, tell us your connection to the field of workplace safety and health. How is it that you find this subject matter important, such that you have become chair of the Workforce Protections Subcommittee?
Sure. I spent 6 years in the California State Assembly prior to being elected to Congress. And so this is my first year in the U.S. Congress, and was very honored to have the opportunity to immediately, take the position of chair of the subcommittee on workforce protections. And in California, I saw firsthand how regulations that did not fully account for the need to balance protections for workers with the need to have viable enterprises in our state, and the challenges that small businesses face led to situations that were bad for both employers and workers. Indeed, in California, we have, I believe, currently the second highest unemployment in the entire country. We have the most stagnant wage growth. We have very high levels of inequality. We have businesses leaving the state left and right. A lot of it is because of the way the workplace has been regulated, or really overregulated or misregulated, I should probably say. So, for example, California originated the law known as AB 5, which limits the ability of independent contractors to work in our state. It essentially abolishes, or at least severely limits, independent contracting across hundreds of professions, which has put many, many people out of work, has been crippling for small businesses. And so as the chair of Workforce Protections, I view protections in a very broad sense of the word, in terms of your ability to practice your profession as you choose under the situation, under the circumstances that you choose, the ability of employers and employees to come to relationships that work best for them, the freedom to be able to practice your calling, which is really fundamental to what the American dream is all about. And then at the same time, assuring that we have the rights of workers and in the workplace respected, but that things like health and safety don't become a pretext for other political objectives. Which, at the end of the day, then is bad for workers, is bad for employers, and actually distracts attention away from proper health and safety measures.
That makes sense. So if I understood you, workplace safety and health is extremely important for employers and employees, but to use that as a opportunity to expand government encroachment through overregulation really takes away from the success story of the American business environment, and small businesses in particular struggle to understand the complexity of the regulatory schemes that states and the federal system are imposing upon them. Do I get that right?
That's exactly right. I mean, small businesses in particular in California and across the country, but California is sort of what the current administration is modeling a lot of its workplace and economic policies on. Small businesses really, really struggle with excessive and unnecessary regulations, just because they don't have the resources, the economy of scale, the internal compliance departments to be able to deal with this. And so it's why small businesses are really getting killed in a lot of places in California, is because of these regulations.
I've dedicated my living to trying to understand the complex regulatory schema that employers have to operate under, and I always am in awe of the small American business that struggles to master this. I think the small American business is the great American story. It's the hero of the American economy. So I share your view on that. Taylor, it's a great connection to, and gives confidence for the future of Representative Kiley's role as chair.
Absolutely. I think it's something we discuss on this program all the time, the feasibility of some of these, regulations that we see for the folks, actually on the ground. And so, Kevin, you've been you're chair now of the subcommittee on workforce protections. You mentioned that. I just wanted to see if you could touch briefly on sort of the process for that. Fairly new into your tenure, in terms of being a representative, and just sort of the selection process, and then some of the maybe powers or roles that you have. I think it'd be really good insight for our community.
Yes, absolutely. So, Chair Virginia Fox, who's of course the chair of the Education and the Workforce Committee, kind of approached me soon after I was elected about joining that committee. And really, her initial angle was that I was a former high school teacher and was also vice chair of the Education Committee in California, and so I was sort of a natural fit for that part of the committee, but she didn't know at first, which of course I told her that I'd actually been very actively involved in these issues in the legislature, leading the fight against AB5, for example. And so it ended up being really a perfect committee to be on. And given that experience, I was very honored when she decided I'd be a good fit to chair the Workforce Protections Subcommittee. So the first hearing we held was all about this independent contracting issue. And we brought in folks from California who talked about how damaging it has been for workers and for businesses and our overall economy in California. And our latest hearing was looking at the wage and hour division's latest slew of regulations and how impractical they are for a lot of especially small businesses, and indeed how they have really short-circuited or entirely neglected the requisite economic analysis that the law requires. And so the committee, the subcommittee is a very important site for congressional oversight. In bringing in the folks who are effectively making policy when they issue these regulations at the agency level, and bringing in perspectives from employers and from small businesses and from workers on the practical effect of these policies. So, we looked at, for example, this new tipping regulation that they're trying to implement that is just completely impractical. It's going to make the owner of a small restaurant go around and track minute by minute what a waiter is doing to, what minute are they actually bringing food to the table versus doing something else, and that it has to be tracked as tipped versus non-tipped work. It's just done without any conception of how this is actually going to play out in the real world. And so we're really trying to bring that real world perspective.
Yeah, that's a valuable service. So when we talk about oversight by the subcommittee over agencies, let's just talk about OSHA. Since this is the OSHA 3030, what power does the subcommittee have in the under the aegis of oversight?
Well, we have a lot of powers, and we will be doing, and have been, and will continue to do oversight of OSHA. But in terms of the powers that we bring to the process, we have the ability to subpoena documents and to demand them of the agency. Usually, we hope it doesn't have to get to the point of a subpoena. We can bring in the administration officials and ask them questions about what's going on. We can look to, whether they are in compliance with the law, and then demand a course correction when we get evidence that they are not. So those are all, very powerful tools for bringing accountability. In fact, the whole committee brought in Julie Sue herself for an oversight hearing. And, I think that that hearing and her performance at it went a long way towards stalling that nomination. But in a similar vein, we have followed up on a number of things from that particular hearing based on what she said, based on ways we feel like she's not complying with the law. And so that's exactly the sort of thing that we're doing when it comes to regulations by OSHA or by the Wage and Hour Division.
And there's a reserved power from the subcommittee as well that underlies all of these activities that you just described, and that is the power to propose legislation. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration is a creature of a congressional act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. And on occasion, Congress has come back and enacted new legislation that has revised the powers of the agency and always has that ability to do so again. And those new legislative initiatives can be proposed by the Workforce Protections Subcommittee. Is that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely. And not only that, in terms of coming up with, a new bill, which of course has to travel through the entire legislative process. And, even if it passes the House, has to go through the Senate, has to be signed by the president. We also have the ability to use the appropriations process to try to, affect policy changes there. So to give you one example, we've actually added language to the relevant appropriations bill that no funds shall be used to enforce a new independent contractor rule, which they're trying to come up with to basically nationalize AB5 from California. So we can use levers like that to really fight back against harmful regulations that are coming from the agencies.
Non-funding legislation, I think I'd refer to it as. Is that about right?
That's right.
So that's interesting. I noticed that you've made statements in the past, particularly during your campaign, that one of the things that concerns you the most is waste in federal government. Is that an issue that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration is capable of being examined for? Examining, is it possible for is there an opportunity for the subcommittee to examine any possibility of waste by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration?
Yes, absolutely. We want to look up and down every department and agency for areas where we can save taxpayer funds, or, sometimes it's worse than waste. It's funds that are being used for an outright damaging purpose, right? It's like a negative sum game, and not just, money that's vanishing. So we certainly would love to get any input as far as areas where that agency can be made to work more efficiently or in a more, productive way.
I'd be happy to stop by your office and offer a list of some great ideas, I think. Let me ask you before we do, one question would be whether or not you believe that if Congress has given a mandate to the agency, in this case OSHA, in the initial enabling act, and OSHA engages in regulatory activity that's outside of its congressional mandate, would that or would that not be an example of agency waste? It's pursuing activities that are not within its mandate. Congress didn't expect it to engage in.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd call that waste, and it's worse than waste. It's unlawful. That's really, the core of oversight is assuring that the agencies are acting within the scope of their authorization from Congress. And when they exceed that authorization, then, they have become something that is not envisioned in our form of government. That is to say, a kind of a fourth branch, a policy-making body untethered from any authority from duly elected officials. And so that is absolutely really the number one thing in any oversight exercise, is looking at the extent to which the agency is fulfilling the mandate provided by Congress. And you're absolutely right that agencies like this one, especially under the current leadership, have a habit of relentlessly pushing the boundaries of what they're authorized to do.
And you say this is the core function of oversight. And just to say it in a different way, this is the Article 2 constitutional duty that Congress was charged with.
That's right.
The separation of powers to provide oversight over the executive branch on matters, I think specifically just like this.
Yes, that's a great point, which is that oversight, some people like to think, oh, well, this is just a matter of, of partisanship or creating conflict for its own sake. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is a matter of constitutional responsibility that the Constitution, confers upon Congress this power of oversight, of holding the executive branch accountable. We would be derelict if we did not engage in that work. And it's more important than ever, as you allude to, given this sort of inexorable growth of the administrative state and its, ever increasing reach into all facets of American life and business.
A great point. Couldn't agree more. So Kevin, I'm going to give you the impossible task of trying to predict the future here for us. But what issues do you think the subcommittee is going to address when you get back to Washington? Are there a couple workplace safety related issues that you think are going to be on the agenda, or that you'd like to see the subcommittee tackle?
Yeah, we have a number of issues that have come up in our discussions with stakeholders. Certainly, there have been some proposals related to the ability to bring in folks that ostensibly for purposes of inspection, but instead, the reality seems to be something very different. So we're still in the process of getting feedback and looking at what are the areas that are going to be most important to focus on. Certainly the issues that we've been discussing so far, the independent contractor issue, the illegal Julie Sue scheme to keep her on as an unconfirmed secretary, are continuing to be at the top of the list. I think that some of the hangover from COVID regulations, where they're trying now to sort of institute COVID emergency regulations, which is pretty crazy given where we are now, is something that I'm very concerned about. I'm also interested in looking retrospectively at the ways in which so-called emergency powers were used and abused to create impractical and counterproductive conditions in American workplaces. That's something that I'm interested in looking at. So I want to try to focus our subcommittee's resources on where they can be most effective in trying to bring about policy changes or to stop bad policy changes in order to get the economy moving in the right direction, which is something that is very, very important given what we've been through in recent years.
And the hearing schedule for the subcommittee is one of the vehicles by which you intend to tackle these issues?
That's right.
How do you identify the number of hearings that the subcommittee is capable or is practical for the subcommittee to conduct in a given term, for example? Why not more, or why not fewer? How does it arrive at the number of hearings that it does traditionally?
There's no sort of set number or mathematical precision to it. It's more a matter of, okay, what are the really big issues and how do we address them in a way that will be maximally effective, that isn't going to sort of dilute the power of the subcommittee by constantly convening, and that will align with the overall goals of the entire committee in such a way as to be as forward-looking as we possibly can. So, that's something that I work with Chair Fox on constantly, as well as the great staff we have on the Education and Workforce Committee, and that's going to be the frame through which we'll get it moving forward for the rest of the year.
And for the benefit of the members of the OSHA 3030 community, that changes when the majority minority shifts from one party to the other. And so now that it's a Republican majority at the subcommittee, there's a Republican serving as chair, and that is how the agenda gets set. Is that correct? Or is there a bipartisan dialogue on that subject?
No, I mean, when you have a change in the majority, then you have a new chair, and it's really the chair who sets the agenda for the committee. Of course, done in concert with the members. But if they, you could always, I suppose, challenge something that the chair wants to do. But we have on our side folks who are very supportive of what Chair Fox is doing, and so that enables her and the committee staff to really work to advance the vision we have for the committee. Now, that being said, I'm always interested in working on a bipartisan basis where possible. And so when there are folks who I think on the other side who, could be supportive of something that we're doing, I'm always looking to build those bridges.
And there's been a number of years where the agenda was set by your predecessor. And so fairness works its way out over a period of time when the majority switches hands. And now I think a lot of the issues that you've discussed with us on the show have been forced to lie dormant for a number of years under the predecessor formation of the committee.
Well, sadly, I think that is true, and it's also true that I just think in the last Congress, oversight wasn't a priority, and frankly, I think that was done because of an unwillingness to really hold this president and his administration to account, which I think is unfortunate. I don't think that accountability function should depend on whether the president is or is not of your party. And so I think that, there's almost this backlog that's been there of oversight that needs to be done, and which is why I think our committee has, been moving at a pretty rapid pace this year.
Representative Kiley, we know you're really busy. Can you tell us where you're at right now? I know we're in recess and you're not with us here in Washington, D.C. Where are you at right now?
I'm in my district. So at the moment, I'm in Rockland, California, although my district is really big. It runs through 10 counties in California, covers hundreds of miles, includes Tahoe as well as Death Valley. So I'm getting this month where we're not in session in DC to be as present and active in my communities as possible, including certainly speaking with employers and small businesses about the issues that they're facing.
I think that's great. And I'm grateful that you're taking time to speak with the employer community. Such an important part of the whole question that we have dedicated our lives to in the field of occupational safety and health. So thank you for that. It's a long, large jurisdiction that you're responsible for, but a beautiful jurisdiction as well, going all the way as far north as almost Sacramento. Is that right?
North of Sacramento, actually, and Plumas County is the northernmost point, but I live in the greater Sacramento area in Rockland.
And Kevin, you're a native of the 3rd District. Am I wrong?
That's right. Yeah, that's where I grew up. Absolutely.
And a product of the public school system there in your own community you grew up in, which I think is another terrific sort of background story to the success that you've achieved ever since. Last question for you, Kevin, and then we'll let you go back to your busy schedule. When you were first confirmed as the chair of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee, and you told folks back at home that you were chair of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee, what did they understand that role to mean? What did they understand workforce protections to be about?
Well, I think that people were excited because I think they see it as encompassing, the role that our government has in interfacing with businesses, which is an incredibly broad, as you mentioned, area, an incredibly important role of government, and one that has been, not executed as well as it should, certainly in California. But, my constituents saw in the assembly how I was very focused on these issues, for example, with AB 5. And so I think that generally they see it as a natural outgrowth of that. But then also, folks are learning just how much responsibility the subcommittee has and how many different issues there are for us to tackle. And so I think it's actually been a great opportunity that I've had. I've really appreciated the discussions I've had with many stakeholders, and I'd certainly encourage folks who are listening to be in touch with my office if you see an area that is, deserving of our subcommittee's attention.
Well, we certainly look forward to staying in touch with you on that subject and continuing in that dialogue. Representative Kiley, thank you very much for appearing on the OSHA 3030 with Keller and Heckman. We're very grateful for your time, and we hope that is an opportunity to continue the dialogue as we go forward. And we are confident and excited about a great term as chair of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee. We'll enjoy watching your work.
Well, thank you very much. This has been great. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you, Representative Kiley, for joining us today. That's it for today's OSHA 3030. You can find all of our past episodes for the past 10 years on our library, khlaw.com/OSHA 3030. Many of those topics are still as informative and as educational as they were when they were first recorded, so check them out. Taylor, as you know, we're now a podcast, have been for many, many years. I'd invite everyone in the OSHA 3030 community to subscribe to the podcast so it automatically gets downloaded. This episode will appear as a podcast episode within the next day or so through any of your favorite podcast apps. We're also on LinkedIn. Taylor Johnson has a LinkedIn account. So does the firm's workplace safety and health page on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn account. Make sure you send us a connection so that we can stay in touch in between episodes. You should also know that our next episode will be on September 20th, 1 p.m. Eastern. And we'll have another great topic for that episode. When you get the invitation, don't forget, all we ask from friends and clients of the OSHA 3030 community is to forward that invitation on to at least 3 others: in-house counsel, safety and health professionals, those who will find the material we cover relevant to their workplaces. Our sister programs, the TSCA 3030 and REACH 3030, have episodes coming up over the next couple of months. The TSCA 3030 on September 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and the REACH 3030 on October 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if your company is engaged in activities that are covered under those regulatory schema, please be sure to subscribe to those programs as well. Well, thank you, Taylor Johnson. On behalf of Taylor and myself and all of us here at Keller and Heckman and the team here at Keller and Heckman who did a great job putting on another program, I'm thankful to all of you in the OSHA 3030 community for participating and for making the program successful for 10 straight years. We hope that you continue to forward on the invitations to others so that we can hopefully all enjoy time together for another 10 years. And until next month's episode, stay safe.